students, welcome to our YouTube channel. So we are discussing various theories and we have been talking about postmodernism, and we are today going to talk about two theorists very important in the field of postmodernism. These figures are Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. So mostly हम इनका नाम साथ ही लेते हैं because they have given works, they have written works together, they have given concepts, and इसलिए हम mostly इनको साथ पढ़ते हैं. तो in this video also we are going to study about Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. They write about postmodernism. We have discussed about postmodernism and the difference between modernity and postmodernity. You can look at the previous videos and you will get the fair idea about these concepts. So Gilles Deleuze was a French philosopher and Felix Guattari was a French psychoanalyst and a political activist. They wrote a number of works together, though when it comes to their separate career, they are also very important. They worked in the field of psychoanalysis, schizophrenia, they worked on Freud's work. So काफी ज़्यादा plethora of work they have done independently and together as well. Let us know the works that they have done. So jointly, these two people have written these works: Capitalist and Schizophrenia, Kafka, Towards a Mirror Literature, a very important work. Then What is Philosophy? Anti-Oedipus, that came out in 1972, and then we have 1,000 Platers. This work came out in 1980. So 1972 and 1980. Last two works are very, very important when it comes to the literature as well. Let us talk about their work Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia. So it is a 1972 book by these French authors Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. The former was a philosopher, as I told you, and the latter one was a psychoanalyst. It's the first volume, and their collaborative work came out to be called as Capitalism and Schizophrenia. The second one, the collaborative work was called as 1,000 Plotters. It came out in 1980. So in this video, we are going to talk about this concept of rhizosome that they gave together. Okay, so Deleuze and Guattari worked has paved way to a whole new way of thinking in this world. They are going to talk about this world that is linked and interlinked and intertwined with one another. Because as I told you, there can never be one truth that is there without the meaning about the meaning of the society. So they are talking about how a new way of thinking can be seen about the society. Their ideas can be applied to anything and everything under the sun, whether it is human relation, whether it is works of arts, philosophy, culture. Without any hesitation, you can apply their work to any domain that is present. And they basically talks about how in infinite direction the concepts can be used. So one truth can lead to other truths. This is something that they are talking about. Let us talk about this very important concept of rhizosome. Already paper में कैसे आया है? So they have already given this question before. They said that these are the concepts. एक side पे list 1 में concepts थे, list 2 में they had the critics there, or they had the theorist. So you had to match. So you need to remember that who gave this concept of rhizosome. It is Guattari and these very important figure, these Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. These two together gave this very important concept of rhizosome. Let us discuss in detail what this concept is about. And it's a very, very easy concept, but an important concept. Rhizosome is a philosophical term used to describe the relations and the connectivity of the thing. Take an example of this modern world. In this here, you can take an example of internet. So internet you see, and in fact, more concrete example we can take of Wikipedia. So we know we all use Wikipedia, and when you click on one hyperlink, you move towards another page. So this means that everything is linked with one another. You're not only opening one page, but with just one click, you have so many different tabs that can be opened. This means that each and everything that is present in front of us is interlinked, is intertwined. So this means there is a relationship between things, there is a connectivity between the things. The author Deleuze and Guattari have assigned this term rhizosome referring to a relations like that of the roots. So they took an example of roots. Look at this picture. This picture shows tap root. This is what? This is tap root. हम सबने science में पढ़ा है. These are tap roots. Then this is the central motive they use in their essay. This is the root and the rhizosome metaphor that we are talking about. So the tap root, this is the main root that it has, and there are other fiber roots that are attached to it. These are called as the rhizosome. They deterritorize the lines. They do what? They deterritorize the lines. That means they will move from one place to another. They will spread around the ground, and they will never be any concrete way they can be intertwined in. So they can go anywhere, any direction, in any way possible. They spread underground with no direction, no beginning and no end. So this is the tap root, and tap root has a number of other roots attached to it. This is only the tap root, right? What is a fibrous root? We have already studied two types of roots. So fibrous roots के अंदर ऐसे बहुत सारे roots होती थी नीचे, right? But when it comes to tap root, there is one main root that is present there, but there are multiple other roots that come out of it. So this means there is one theme that you're talking about, but it will deterritorize itself when you talk about the other things that are associated with it. So a rhizosome can be applied to any genre, can be applied either in the field of philosophy or in the field of humanities, in any field, in literature as well. You take one example and there will be multiple examples attached to it, just as I gave you the example of internet, or more concrete example can be your Wikipedia pages. Let us study some of the characteristics of this rhizosome. They are dispersed. This is the concept of rhizosome we are discussing. They are dispersed. It is opposed to the idea of a tree, which is what? Which has a starting point and which has the form of branches, and you can predict the path of a tree. So you must have seen a tree. So you have a concrete tree. The tree has a number of branches as well. And you know that there are similar branches there, 2 to 3 branches, and there will be different leaves on it. But when it comes to roots, you have a tap root and a number of other roots attached to it. So this means that the branches of the tree, you can say it's a concrete structure that is created. But when it comes to the roots, there is no concrete structure and deterritorialization happens. So they disperse, but their dispersal is limited. The branches are limited in number. When compared to the relation between things, a rhizosome forms assemblages, right? वो क्या होती हैं? Assemblance होती है उसके अंदर. There are a lot of assemblance that you can see. Assemblage is a gathering and a grouping of things. What do you mean by this assemblage? Assemblage basically means the grouping of things that happen, the gathering of things. The roots that you see, they gathered together. It is called as the assemblage. Then, what basically is rhizosome? Let us know about them and in what direction can it grow. So, it can grow in any direction. It is basically a horizontal alliance with no specific direction where all multiplicities can happen to make part of it. They can interact with one another. Everything is connected in one way or another, but in one plane. So, in one plane, you see the things that are attached to one another. So, you move in a horizontal manner and things would be attached. As I gave you an example of internet. Internet, you see, you can search any topic. So, any point of a rhizosome can be connected to any other. That can be seen here. So, you search one thing and there will be other things that will pop up there. This is a rhizosome. One thing is attached to another. You just type one word, say type cat. There will be multiple things that you can search from this. This means it is a kind of a rhizosome, the plethora of information that you have. There are 6 principles attached to rhizosome. So, they have already asked about rhizosome. Now, you have to go one step further because they do ask interdisciplinary questions and they are asking nowadays concrete questions as well. So, let us go one step further and talk about the 6 principles, जो कि Gilles and Deleuze ने ही बात करी है. So, they said that there are 6 principles around rhizosome. What are these principles? The first is connectivity. This states that every part of a system is connected to another part in any possible way, like in the real world. A person has a relation with another person who is connected to many more. Hence, it creates a network. So this is like me having a relation with someone, and that someone also has a relation with other people. And somehow that other person will also have relationships further. This means that every one of us are somewhere connected. It's like a network that happens. Okay, then we have heterogeneity. Defines that a rhizosome is a connection between things of different nature. That it is heterogeneous in nature. One point can be connected to another point which may or may not have an interlink between one another. Okay, so I am searching about cat, but maybe a drop down menu में एक option comes up, the relationship between cat and dog, right? Or maybe the difference between cat and dog. So maybe two different things are also attached to one another. This means that this group can be heterogeneous in itself. Right? So rhizosome is a connection between things that have different nature in themselves. The author gives an example of orchids with bees. Author here gives an example of orchids and bees. Both interact in a reproduction system to one another. They are interacting with one another, but each one belongs to a completely different environment. So you see on this beautiful orchid, there is a beautiful bee sitting. Are these two things related to one another? Their ecosystem, their way of doing things are different. One is an insect, another is a flower, right? So they're very different than one another, but they interact. They interact with one another for the process of your reproduction. This means that in this world, there are connections, there is connectivity, and there is also heterogeneity that is there. Then there is multiplicity. In a rhizosome, all parts are connected to one another, and then these are connected to the others, and these others to a greater number of others. This means that there is multiplicity. Now take an example of a game that you are, or maybe gossip. Gossip is a good example here. So I told something to my friend and told her not to tell it to anyone else, and she being she will tell it to 3 of her best friends. 3 of her best friends will tell my secret to their friends. This means that the gossip is going to spread like fire. Similarly, rhizosome also spread like this. They are multiple in nature. They will spread. They are like gossips. Okay? They are like informal communication, gossips that will happen. Then we have rupture. This is the 4th principle that is observed. Ruptures. It states that rhizosome can never be broken. Again and again, new rhizosomes are created. They can never be stopped. You can never, break it. Take an example of ginger. If you have ever worked in kitchen, आपने ये ginger देखा होगा. I cannot draw it इतना ज़्यादा अच्छा तो. So you must have seen that it can grow from anywhere possible. If you cut it from one place, it may starts to grow from another place. This is the same thing that happens with a rhizosome. It states that a rhizosome can never be broken. If one of its part is interrupted, it will continue in a different path or be deteriorized. Right? It changes its function, but will always remember. So ये deterritorize तो हो सकता है, but it will never die. So take this example. If there is this growth that is happening here, right? If you're talking about, or take this example of gossip only. So you're talking something to your friend, and you got to know that 3 of other people also know about it. Maybe you have asked them to shut their mouth, but there are other 5 people who already know about it, and they are talking about it. This means that whatever may be the situation, you can never rupture the rhizosome. It will keep on growing. Maybe the function will change, maybe it will deterritorize itself, but it will always be there. This happens with information also. Maybe there are concrete informations. You can stop, some of the informations or rumors from spreading, but some will always exist, and this will lead to other information to sprung up. Then cartography. So rhizosome is like a map. You can enter at any specific point, but you cannot trace it because it has no end. So we see our authors very brilliantly comparing rhizosome to a map. Just as map keeps on going, you can move from one place to another. You have so many different roads connected to one another. Similarly, this happens in a rhizosome also. You can go from one point to another, but there is no specific location that from which you can trace it. Last is Dalcomania. In general, rhizosome is defined as an interaction system applied to any division that follows. No specific pattern and no specific organizations are there. This means that the information will spread, it will multiply, it will do what? There will never be any rupture. It's like a map. It will grow. It will keep on growing. It has another structure in growing in it also. You can never stop it. There is heterogeneity. There is multiplicity. So these are the 6 principles that you have to remember, and they use this concept of rhizosome in various fields. This is the postmodern world which they are catering to, which they are talking about, where no information is concrete. One information will always lead to other plethora of information that will open up. So this world is like a Pandora's box where you see multiple information going about. The best example with which you can understand and remember rhizosome is nothing but Wikipedia. Just with one click, you will have multiple information, right? This is the best example of a rhizosome. So I hope you understood what I wanted to talk about. You understood the 6 concepts, the 6 principles that are attached to it. The example of gossip and Wikipedia will help you remember and retain the information for longer period of time. You should also know the other works that are written. So you should remember the dates also. So Anti-Oedipus के अंदर इन्होंने ये concept दिया है that came out in 1972. Remember the date. So it is 1972 that you have to remember. Okay. So I hope you understood and you liked the video and it was very informative. But if you still have any doubt, you can ask me that in the comment section and I will surely reply to you. Thank you.